The Zevran observer team stood at the edge of a ruined Martian outpost. The sky above was red and dusty. Wind blew fine sand across broken metal and scorched ground. Ahead, the human unit moved like shadows, silent, fast, and sure. They wore heavy suits and carried rifles that fired bullets. Some had knives strapped to their legs. Others carried small boxes filled with explosives. It looked old, outdated, even silly to the Zevrans. The Vrel watched through his helmet visor as the soldiers crept forward. He could not understand how such primitive tools could fight against machines built for war. Those weapons, he said to Jake Harlow, who stood beside him. They do not glow or hum. They do not cut through walls or shock minds. How can they be useful? Jake didn't look at him. He kept watching the team move. "Wait," was all he said. A drone rose from behind a collapsed building. It was fast and sleek, made of dark alloy. It hovered and fired bursts of plasma. The air cracked with heat. One soldier dove for cover, rolling behind a rock. The Zevrans flinched. Their tech shields would have blocked the attack easily. But the humans had nothing like that. Then, the soldier raised his rifle and fired. Crack. The bullet hit the drone's sensor eye. It shattered. The machine wobbled mid-air. Another soldier ran forward low and fast. He threw something small, a grenade. It landed under the drone and exploded with fire and noise. The drone fell in pieces. The Vrel stared. That was efficient. Jake gave a tired smile. Just getting started. The team moved again deeper into the ruins. More drones appeared. Some shot energy beams. Others launched guided mines. The Zevrans watched as their own weapons would have been the better choice. Faster, cleaner, smarter. But then came the mud. Rain had started hours ago, mixing with Martian dust. The ground turned into thick sludge. Alien tech slowed down. Sensors fogged. Movement became difficult. The humans didn't stop. They jumped, slid, and climbed through the mess like it was normal. They used ropes, hands, and feet. Their boots sank deep, but they kept going. One soldier slipped and fell hard. Instead of calling for help, he pulled himself up and kept moving. "How?" the Vrel asked. "This terrain should slow them." "It does," Jake said, "but not enough to stop them." Then came the silence. Everything stopped. No gunfire. No movement. Just quiet. "What now?" the Vrel whispered. "Now," Jake said. "They hunt." From the shadows, the soldiers spread out. They used hand signals, not comms. They moved without sound. Soon the drones began to fall, one by one, shot, stabbed, or crushed. After 20 minutes, the last drone exploded in a pile of scrap. The Zevrans stood in awe. They fought without perfect vision, the Vrel said, without high-tech support. They used only what they had. Jake nodded. And they won. The Vrel looked at the soldiers as they regrouped. They were tired, covered in mud and blood, but they stood tall. He turned to Jake. "Perhaps we misunderstood." Jake smiled. "You don't know the half of it." The stars had always been full of secrets. For thousands of years, humans looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. Some believed, some doubted, but none could prove it. That changed. On a cold morning in late October, when the sky split open and something not from Earth came through, it arrived without warning. No missile defense systems reacted. No radars saw it coming. One moment, the sky above New York was clear and blue. The next, a massive object hovered silently over Central Park. It was smooth, silver, and shaped like a teardrop. It did not burn or fall. It simply was. People screamed. Governments scrambled. Soldiers were sent. But before anyone could act, the thing opened. From inside came beings unlike anything ever seen. Tall, slender, with dark skin and glowing eyes. They wore suits that shimmered like water. They did not speak with mouths, but with thoughts. Their message was calm and clear. "We come in peace." First contact had happened. Within hours, More ships appeared across the planet, floating cities above major capitals. No weapons fired, no demands made, just observation. The world held its breath. Then came the questions. The aliens, later called the Zevran Alliance, wanted to learn about humanity. They studied our languages, our history, our technology. They were impressed by many things: fusion reactors, cybernetics, space travel. But there was one thing they could not understand. Why did humans still use old weapons? In every military base they visited, they saw the same thing: rifles that fired bullets, blades made of steel, explosives that burned with fire. Compared to Zevran tech, plasma lances, sonic disruptors, gravity mines, human weapons looked like museum pieces. A Zevran scientist named Thavrel asked the question during a meeting with human leaders in Geneva. "Your species has reached the stars," he said, his voice soft and deep. "Yet you fight with tools from centuries past. Why?" The room was quiet. Some officials laughed nervously. Others gave vague answers. "Budget limits," said one general. "Tradition," said a politician. Thavrel tilted his head. He did not understand. Later, a man named Jake Harlow answered differently. He was not a politician. He was not even high-ranking. He was a soldier, a field analyst with calloused hands and tired eyes. He leaned forward and said, "Because they still work." Thavrel watched him carefully. "Explain." Jake did not smile. He only said, "Come see for yourself." Curious, Thavrel requested permission to observe a real combat zone. The request was approved. Not long after, a small Zevran team joined a human unit stationed on Mars. Colony Theta 9 had become unstable. Rogue AI drones had broken free from control. They were attacking civilians. The humans were sent to stop them. As the Zevrans watched, they prepared to witness something primitive. They were wrong. After the battle, the Zevran team gathered inside a temporary human outpost near the ruins. The air was thick with sweat, oil, and the smell of burnt metal. Soldiers sat on crates or leaned against walls, cleaning their weapons by hand. No machines did it for them. Just cloth, oil, and steady fingers. Thavrel watched them carefully. He had seen many species fight. Some used energy blades that could slice through steel like paper. Others used sonic bursts that shattered minds. But none fought like humans. They were messy, loud, unpredictable. And yet, they won. One soldier, a woman named Lisa Porter, handed Thavrel a rifle. It was heavy in his hands, cold, real. "This is what we use," she said. "It works." Thavrel looked at it. It does not glow. It does not sing. How can it be better than our tech? Lisa gave a small laugh. Better? Maybe not, but it works when nothing else does. Jake Harlow walked over and leaned against a table. "Let me explain." "Hit another way," he said. "Your weapons need perfect conditions. Clear line of sight, clean power sources, no dust, no mud, no rain. If any of those things get in the way, your guns stop working." He pointed to the rifle in Thavrel's hands. "This one? It gets dirty, it still fires. It gets wet, it still shoots. You drop it, you pick it up and keep going." Thavrel turned the weapon in his hands. "But bullets are slow. They do not cut through armor like plasma." Jake shook his head. "You're thinking about it wrong. You build weapons to impress. We build them to work." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small knife. It was worn, the edge chipped, from use. He handed it to Thavrel. "This has been with me for 7 years," he said. "I've used it to cut rope, open food packs, and kill 2 men who tried to kill me. It doesn't hum or flash, but it gets the job done." Thavrel held the blade. It was simple, heavy, human. Lisa added, "You saw what happened today. Your drone stopped when the mud got too deep. Your sensors failed, but we kept moving." Jake nodded. "We don't need perfect tools. We just need something that won't quit on us." Thavrel thought for a long time. Then he asked, "Why? Not make better weapons? Why not change?" Jake smiled again. Because we already have the best ones. We just don't need fancy stuff to win. The Zevran scientist looked around the room. Every soldier had a weapon. Every one of them was different. Some had dents. Some were patched with tape. None looked new, but all of them worked. Later that night, the Vrel met with the other Zevrans. They reviewed footage from the battle. They watched how the humans moved, how they fought, how they adapted. One of them, a younger Zevran named Velen, spoke first. "They are strange," he said. "Their weapons are old. Their tactics are rough, but they always find a way to win." The Vrel looked at the screen. A human soldier crawling through mud. Another throwing a grenade with perfect aim. A third reloading without looking. "They do not fight like us," the Vrel said. "They fight like survival is the only rule." Velen tilted his head. "Is that not how all warriors should be?" The Vrel did not answer. He only watched as the humans cleaned their gear, laughed over bad coffee, and prepared for the next fight. They didn't wait for orders. They didn't ask for help. They just got ready, because that's what humans did. They survived. And if you stood in their way, you lost. The Zevran team stayed with the human unit for several more days. They observed everything. How soldiers trained, how they moved, how they fought even when tired or hurt. The Vrel took notes. He asked questions. And slowly, he began to understand something no other alien had before. Humans did not fight like other species. Other races built weapons that needed perfect conditions. Clean air, stable power, clear targeting systems. But humans, they built weapons that worked anywhere. One morning, the Vrel watched a small group of soldiers set up an ambush in a dry riverbed. The area was rocky and covered in dust. There was no cover except for broken stones and dead trees. It was not ideal by any standard, but the humans made it work. They used old rifles, belts of bullets, and hand-thrown explosives. They didn't hide behind tech. They became the tech. From his observation post, the Vrel saw one soldier crawl forward, dragging a pack full of gear. His suit was torn. His face was dirty, yet he kept moving. Jake Harlow stood beside the Vrel, arms crossed. "You see it now?" Jake asked. The Vrel nodded slowly. "Your people do not wait for the best tools. You use what you have." Jake smiled. "And we make it better." A few minutes later, the enemy drones arrived. They hovered above the rocks, scanning for movement. Their sensors looked for heat, sound, motion. But the humans were quiet, hidden, waiting. Then the first shot rang out. Crack. A drone exploded mid-air. Another soldier fired from a different angle. Then another. Each shot was placed precise, deadly. The drones turned toward the noise, but it was too late. A grenade flew through the air and landed right in their center. The blast sent metal flying in all directions. It was over in less than a minute. Thavril stared at the footage replay. "They did not need advanced targeting," he whispered. "They used instinct, timing." Jake nodded. "We don't shoot to impress. We shoot to hit." Later that night, the Vrel sat with a group of soldiers around a fire. They passed around coffee and old mugs. Some laughed. Others cleaned their weapons again. He asked them directly, "Why do you keep using these old tools?" A young soldier named Dan replied first. "Because they work. Always have, always will." Another, older woman named Maria added, "New stuff breaks. Old stuff, it just keeps going." The Vrel looked at the rifle in his hands again. "But you could build better weapons. Why not?" Jake sat down next to him. "You think we haven't tried? We've got lasers, railguns, smart rounds, all kinds of fancy toys, but in real fights, they jam, they glitch, they fail." He pointed outside. "Out there in the dirt, the cold, the dark? What works best isn't what's new. It's what survives." The Vrel thought about his own people. Zevrans built beautiful weapons, elegant, powerful. But they required perfect care. One drop of water in the wrong place and they stopped working. Human weapons? They got wet, got muddy, got dropped, and still fired. Jake leaned closer. You want to know the real secret? Devrel looked at him. Jake grinned. Fear. What do you mean? We don't just shoot to kill, we shoot to scare. That sound, that crack, that boom, it tells the enemy someone is out there, someone who won't stop. Devrel said nothing. He only listened as the wind blew across the camp, and somewhere in the dark a single gunshot echoed, then silence. Again, the Zevran team was starting to see the truth. It wasn't just that human weapons worked, it was how they used them. Humans didn't wait for perfect tools or clean battlefields. They fought with what they had, where they were. Devrel asked Jake Harlow to show him more. Not just battles, but training, tactics, history. Jake agreed. They traveled to a remote base deep in the mountains of South America. The air was thin, the cold sharp. Snow covered the ground, and wind howled through the trees. Most species would have called it unfit for combat. Not humans. At the base, Devrel watched as new recruits trained with old rifles and steel blades. They ran through snow, climbed icy rocks, and fired at targets while shivering. No heaters, no warm breaks, just work. One young soldier slipped and fell down a slope. He landed hard but got up fast. His instructor said nothing, just pointed ahead. Keep moving. Devrel turned to Jake. This place is cruel. Jake shrugged. So is war. Later, inside the main hall, Jake showed Devrel something else. Videos. Old ones. Some were grainy. Others were clear. All showed humans fighting in different places. Forests, deserts, cities, even space stations. In each one, the same thing happened. Humans won, sometimes by numbers, sometimes by skill, but often by will. Jake paused on one video. A group of soldiers in heavy coats moved through a frozen wasteland. Their boots left tracks in the snow. Their breath came out like smoke. World War II, Jake said. Russia front. Devrel watched as bullets flew and explosions tore through the land. Men fell. Others kept going. One soldier, barely older than a boy, fired his rifle with shaking hands. When it jammed, he dropped it and grabbed a shovel. He hit the enemy with it. Devrel looked away. This is madness. Jake shook his head. No, this is survival. He clicked again. Another video. This time a jungle. Rain fell in sheets. Mud swallowed boots. Soldiers moved silently through the trees. Vietnam, Jake said. Devrel saw how the humans adapted. They used traps made from sticks and rope. They fought in near silence. They knew the land better than the enemy did. They didn't have the best gear, Jake said, but they had brains and guts. Another click. A moon base. Firefights in low gravity. Bullets bouncing off walls. Humans fighting other humans in tight halls. Lunar uprising, Jake said. Devrel's eyes narrowed. You fought yourselves? Jake nodded. We do that too. He stopped on one final clip. A soldier stood alone on a broken bridge. His suit was torn, his gun empty. Behind him, a large alien creature charged. Instead of running, the soldier pulled out a knife. He met the beast head-on. The screen went black. Devrel sat back. His thoughts were loud in his mind. These are not warriors, he said slowly. They are survivors. Jake smiled. That's the point. Outside, the wind blew harder. Snow hit the windows like sand. Inside, the fire crackled. Devrel looked at the old rifle on the table. He picked it up again, held it tight. I think I understand now, he said. Jake leaned forward. Then tell me what you see. Devrel looked into the fire and spoke. I see a species that does not wait for fate. You do not ask for help. You do not cry when things break. You take what you have and you make it enough. Jake grinned. Now you're getting it. Outside, another gust of wind howled, and somewhere far away, a gunshot echoed into the night. The snowstorm outside the mountain base had grown worse. Wind howled through the trees. Snow piled up against the walls. The world was white and wild. Inside, by the firelight, Thevrel sat with Jake Harlow and a few soldiers. He had watched many battles, seen many fights, but now he wanted to understand something deeper. Why did humans keep going when others would stop? Jake handed him a small, worn book. It was old. The cover was torn. The pages were filled with names and dates and short stories. "Read this," Jake said. Thevrel opened it. The title read, "The History of Human War." He looked at Jake. "You carry this into battle?" Jake smiled. "Some do. Not for luck. Just to remember." Thevrel flipped through the pages. He saw pictures of old wars, men with beards and metal helmets, women dressed in uniforms, fighting just like the men, children who held guns too big for their hands. This one, Jake pointed to a page, is from a place called Normandy. D-Day. Thevrel read the words. On June 6, 1944, thousands of humans stormed a beach under heavy fire. Many died before they even touched the sand, but the rest kept moving. They knew they might die, Jake said, but they went anyway. Thevrel turned another page. A city in ruins, smoke in the sky. Soldiers with rifles ran through fire. "This is Stalingrad," Jake said. "Worst winter on record. People froze to death. Still, they fought." Thevrel closed the book slowly. "Your kind does not fear death." Jake shook his head. "No. We fear failure more." Outside, the storm raged. Inside, the fire burned low. One of the soldiers, a woman named Maria Ellis, spoke next. "You think we fight because we have to," she said. "But sometimes, we fight because we choose to." Thevrel looked at her. "Why would you choose this?" She gave a tired smile. "Because if we don't, someone else will, and they might not be as good at it." Jake nodded. "We've been doing this for a long time, longer than space travel, longer than any alien alliance. We've fought with sticks, stones, swords, bullets, and we'll keep fighting until the end." Thevrel thought about his own people. Zevrans avoided war when they could. They used diplomacy, tech, and logic. Fighting was a last resort. But humans? They treated war like a tool, like a hammer or a knife, something that got the job done. Jake stood and walked to a shelf. He pulled down an old rifle. It was rusted, cracked, but still whole. "This came from a battlefield over 200 years ago," he said. "It still fires." Thevrel took it gently. He felt its weight. "Its age?" he asked. "How can you use something so old and still win?" Jake grinned. "Because winning isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with it," Maria added, "and what you're willing to lose." Silence fell between them. Only the fire made sound. Then Thevrel spoke again. "You are not like other species." Jake raised an eyebrow. No, Thevrel said. "Others fight to protect. Some fight to conquer. You fight to survive. And in doing so, you become stronger." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, that sounds about right." Outside, the wind began to calm. The storm was passing, and somewhere far away a single gunshot echoed through the cold night. Not in anger, but in warning. We are still here. We are still ready. And we are not afraid. Thevrel had seen enough to know the truth. Human weapons worked, not because they were fancy or fast, but because they lasted. They could be used in any place, in any condition, by anyone. But he wanted proof. Real proof. So he asked for a test. Not a real battle. Not yet. A simulation. A challenge between Zevran tech and human skill. The request was passed up through command. After some debate, it was approved. The test would take place in a controlled zone, a training field built to mimic different combat environments. Forest, city ruins, desert, and snow. The rules were simple. A small team of Zevran warriors would face off against a human squad. No energy shields, no drones, no advanced targeting, only what each side could carry and use on their own. Each team would be given the same mission, reach the other side of the field and plant their flag at the final point. Weapons only, no killing, only tagging with paint rounds. The Zevrans brought sleek gear, light plasma pistols, sonic stunners, and smart grenades that tracked movement. The humans brought old rifles, steel knives, and simple explosives. They looked out of place next to the glowing alien tools. But Jake Harlow didn't care. He stood with his team near the edge of the forest section. He checked his rifle, cleaned it once more. Then he looked at the Vrel. "You ready to see how this really works?" The Vrel nodded. "I am curious." Jake grinned. "Good." The signal came. The match began. The Zevrans moved fast. Their suits were light, their steps silent. They scanned the area with perfect vision tech. They spotted the humans early, or so they thought. One Zevran fired a plasma shot into the trees. It lit up the night, burning through leaves and branches. But there was no one there. Jake's team had already moved. They didn't stay in one place. They split up, used cover, moved like shadows. A Zevran soldier stepped into an open space. A net dropped from above. He fell hard. Before he could move, a paint round hit him in the chest. Tagged. Another Zevran turned toward the sound. Something flew through the air. A grenade. It landed close, exploded with a loud boom and a cloud of smoke. Out of the smoke came a human soldier, knife in hand, fast. The Zevran tried to raise his weapon, but it was too late. Another tag, 2 down. The rest regrouped. They changed tactics, spread out, used stealth. But the humans were always one step ahead. They used traps made from rope and sticks. They threw rocks to draw attention. They moved quietly, barefoot in the dirt. One soldier, Lisa Porter, climbed a tree. She waited, watched. When she saw a group moving below, she dropped, hit hard, rolled, got up, fired 2 quick shots, 3 tags in 5 seconds. The Zevrans were stunned. This wasn't just luck, it was skill. Planning, instinct. After 40 minutes, the last Zevran was found, hiding behind a wall. He heard footsteps, turned. A human stood there, rifle raised, paint round fired, match over. Humans won. Devrel watched as the soldiers gathered. They didn't cheer, just checked gear, made sure everyone was okay. Then Jake walked up. "Well?" he asked. The Vrel looked at the fallen Zevrans, at the broken gear, at the way the humans had used nothing but old tools and brains to win. "You did not outgun us," he said slowly. "You outthought us." Jake smiled. "That's the whole point." Outside, the wind blew again. The storm was gone, but the message remained. Humans didn't need the best weapons. They just needed something that worked, and they always did. After the test, Thevrel sat alone in a quiet room at the training base. The lights were low. Outside, the wind had calmed, but the sky was dark with clouds. He held a human knife in his hand. It was plain. No glow, no hum, just steel and grip. He turned it over slowly. The Zevran team had reviewed the match footage 3 times. Every move, every shot, every decision, and every time the result was the same. Humans won. Not because they were faster or smarter, not because their gear was better. They won because they adapted. Jake Harlow walked into the room and sat across from the Vrel. He didn't say anything at first, just watched the alien study the blade. Then he asked, "Still trying to figure us out?" The Vrel looked up. "Yes." Jake smiled. "You won't find the answer in the tools. You'll find it in the people." The Vrel placed the knife on the table. "Your weapons are not advanced. They do not shine or sing, but they work when ours fail." Jake leaned back. "Because we don't build for looks, we build for use." He picked up the knife and flipped it open. "This thing has been around for thousands of years, longer than guns, longer than space travel, and still soldiers carry it." He handed it back. "Why do you think that is?" The Vrel thought for a moment. "Because it does not need power. It does not need signals. It only needs a hand." Jake nodded. "And that hand doesn't have to be strong. Doesn't have to be fast, it just has to move." Outside, the rest of the Zevran team was going through reports. They compared human gear to alien tech. They ran tests, checked damage rates, studied battlefield conditions. What they found surprised them. Human weapons worked best when things went wrong. Rain. Zevran plasma guns sputtered. Human rifles kept firing. Dust. Alien sensors fogged. Human eyes saw clearly. Broken parts. Zevran. Tech failed. Human tools got fixed with tape, wire, and hands. One Zevran officer, Velen, said what many were thinking. Your weapons do not ask for perfect worlds, he said. They work in broken ones. Jake gave a tired smile. That's all we've ever had. Later that night, the Vrel stood near a fire with the human soldiers. They passed around coffee and stories. Some laughed, others smoked. All were tired, but none complained. The Vrel asked Lisa Porter a question. You knew you would win. She looked at him. Not for sure, but I believed. He tilted his head. Why? She took a sip of her drink. Because we fight with more than weapons. We fight with everything we have, and sometimes that's enough. The Vrel looked around the fire, at the faces, the scars, the calloused hands. He finally understood. Human weapons weren't outdated. They were timeless. They did not need perfect care. They did not depend on clean skies or calm winds. They simply worked, and so did the people who carried them. Jake stood and stretched. You ready to write your report? The Vrel nodded. Yes, Jake grinned. Then make sure you get one thing right. What is that? Jake pointed to the knife on the table. We don't fight like other species. We don't need to. We just need to win. Outside, the wind blew again, and somewhere in the dark a soldier cleaned his rifle by firelight, just in case. Because that's what humans did. They stayed ready. Back on the Zevran command ship, the Vrel stood before a circle of high-ranking officers. The room was quiet. The lights were dim. Holograms floated in the air, showing battle footage, weapon tests, and reports from the mission. He had spent the last 3 days writing his findings. Every word was carefully chosen. Every image was reviewed. Now it was time to speak. The Vrel stepped forward and began. We came to Earth expecting to see a young species, he said. One that used old tools because they did not know better. He paused and looked around the room. What we found was something else. A new hologram appeared. It showed clips from Mars, the mountain base, and the training match. Humans moving through mud, snow, fire, firing rifles, throwing knives, winning. Humans do not build for beauty, the Vrel continued. They do not seek perfection. They build for survival. One Zevran officer, an elder named Korin, spoke first. You say their weapons are good, he said, but how can they be better than ours? The Vrel turned to him. Because they work when yours fail. He pointed at the screen. Plasma burns out in rain. Sonic disruptors break in dust. Our targeting systems need clear lines. But human weapons, they do not care about any of that. Another officer asked, then why not adopt them fully? The Vrel nodded. Some among us already have. Field agents on deep cover missions use human-style gear, silent, reliable, unfancy. He looked at the group, and some Zevran units now train with human instructors. A few murmurs passed through the circle. Korin frowned. This seems extreme. The Vrel stepped closer. Extreme? He repeated. Or smart? He raised his hand and another image appeared. A soldier cleaning a rifle by firelight. Another teaching a Zevran how to throw a knife. A third walking through ruins with nothing but a pistol and a pack. Humans do not wait for perfect conditions, the Vrel said. They make do, they adapt, and they win. He let that sink in. Many among us call their ways barbaric, he said. But war is not about style, it is about results. A younger officer asked, so what now? The Vrel looked at the gathered leaders. Now, he said, we learn. The next day, news spread across the Zevran Alliance. Reports from the field, data from the test matches, images of humans fighting with simple tools and strong wills. Some saw it as proof. Others saw it as insult, but many saw it as truth. Humans were not weak. They were not primitive. They were dangerous, and not because of their tech, because of their spirit. Soon after, requests came in from different Zevran units. Some wanted more training. Others asked for human-designed weapons. One elite team even requested full joint exercises. Word reached Earth. Jake Harlow read the report while sitting in a small tent near a training range. He finished reading, folded the paper, and smiled. Then he stood up, walked outside, and called out, "Hey, Lisa." She looked up from where she was cleaning her boots. "Yeah?" Jake tossed her the paper. "Zevrans want to learn from us." Lisa read it quickly and laughed. "About time." Jake grinned. "Now all we have to do is teach them." Outside, the sun was setting, and somewhere far away a soldier loaded his rifle just in case, because that's what humans did. They stayed ready. The Vrel stood at the edge of a wide field. The sky above was gray with early morning clouds. Wind moved through the tall grass like waves in the ocean. Behind him, a small Zevran shuttle rested on the ground, ready for takeoff. In front of him, Jake Harlow stood with his hands in his pockets. They had said their goodbyes already. There was no need for long speeches or firm promises. But the Vrel wanted to say one last thing before he left. He looked at the rifle slung over Jake's shoulder. It was old, scratched, used. "You will teach us," the Vrel said. "But we may never match you." Jake gave a small smile. "You don't have to match us. Just understand us." The Vrel nodded slowly. He had spent weeks watching, learning, fighting beside humans. He had seen how they trained, how they fought, how they thought. And he knew now that human strength did not come from their weapons. It came from them, from their will, from their refusal to quit. Jake handed him something, a small knife, wrapped in worn leather. "Take it," he said. "It's been with me for years, survived 3 wars. Maybe it'll survive you too." The Vrel took the blade gently. He opened it. The edge was sharp. The grip showed years of use. He looked back at Jake. "You trust me with this?" Jake shrugged. "If you're planning to stab me, I'm already dead." They both smiled. A short distance away, other Zevrans were loading data drives into the shuttle. They carried reports, videos, and weapon samples. They had learned much, but they still had more to learn. One of the younger Zevrans, Velen, walked up to the Vrel. "We begin training next week," he said, "with human instructors." The Vrel looked at Jake. "Yes, and I expect great things." Velen bowed slightly. Then he turned and walked away. Jake watched him go. "You sure about this?" The Vrel looked out across the field. "No species stays the same. Even ours must change." Jake nodded. "Good. Because war doesn't wait for anyone." The wind picked up. Dust moved along the ground. Somewhere in the distance, a soldier fired a rifle during training. The sound cracked through the air like thunder. The Vrel listened to it. Then he asked, "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if you met another race like yours?" Jake thought for a second. "Not really." "Why not?" "Because there is no other race like us." The Vrel looked at him. "You are right." Jake grinned. "That's the point." The Vrel stepped toward the shuttle. He stopped just before boarding. "I used to think your people were strange," he said. "Now I think you are something else." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Something else?" The Vrel gave a small nod. "Dangerous. Not because of your weapons, but because of what you carry inside." Jake didn't answer. He only watched as the shuttle door closed. A few seconds later, the engine hummed to life. The ship lifted off, slowly rising into the sky until it became just a dot. Then nothing. Jake stood alone in the field. Then he turned and started walking. Back toward the base, toward the soldiers, toward the guns, because that's where he belonged. Later that night, the Vrel sat in the command room of the Zevran flagship. He placed the old knife on the table in front of him. Around him, officers waited for his report. He looked at them all. "Humans are not like us," he said. "They do not fight with tech. They fight with heart." He paused. "And maybe we should be afraid after all." Outside the ship, the stars burned bright, and somewhere far away a rifle fired into the dark, just in case. Because that's what humans did. They stayed ready.